Who do you become when things get tough? This is a question that's been coming up for me a lot as we're navigating so many things around Leo and the sun. We just recently had a solar eclipse, and now we are in this void, in this liminal space between eclipses. And as we are moving towards a lunar eclipse on August 27th, 28th, that is going to be a major time of release. But before that even happens, there is a sun south node conjunction happening in the sign of Leo. And the sun is really who we identify ourselves to be. The south node is a draining influence. So when those two come together, they are asking us to release old ways of being that we have relied on, but are now holding us back. And a lot of times in this between space eclipses, we can get really exhausted. And I want to invite a different perspective on that exhaustion, meaning that maybe it's not a problem to fix. Maybe it doesn't require you to keep pushing through it and to take things to kind of put you in the space, maybe drink more coffee or, you know, and maybe it's not a time to just have this resignation from life completely either. Maybe it's an invitation for you to understand and see what strategies, what survival strategies are becoming too exhaustive to maintain. This is why I think exhaustion can be such a wonderful tool because you know what? When we are exhausted, we tend to have less ability and energy to bullshit ourselves and to try to do that with anybody else either. And what happens to you when you're tired? What strategies do you implement? Which ones do you not implement that you'd rather implement? These are the types of questions I'd be asking. And this is really, for me, the kind of use of energy that I want to be doing this during this eclipse. I've actually pushed back a few things that I was supposed to be doing during this eclipse because I'm seeing that there's this pivot needed. There's a change of where my energy wants to be allocated. And so I want to honor that. And I'll invite you to honor that if that feels resonant for you as well. This Sun South node conjunction is not only happening at this anaretic 29th degree, which can often feel karmic or destined, like it's a culmination of something. But on top of that, it's happening in the human design gate 29. Now, that doesn't have necessarily the same exact meaning in human design. But if we even think about the numerology of 29, this is a master number. It equals 11, and 11 is a master number. So when we're dealing with master number themes, we are going to have to learn master number lessons. Whenever I talk to people about their life path number and everyone wants to be a master number. And yeah, there's a lot of benefits to being a 2911 or a 3811 or a 22/4 even, 33/6, all of the different master numbers that we see. And you will also get master level obstacles, master level lessons. So be careful what you wish for, essentially, right? So Gate 29 is called the gate of perseverance, and it goes from the gene key of half heartedness to commitment to devotion. So we're being asked, what strategies am I no longer saying yes to? And when I recognize that, what does that give me more energy to allocate toward the yeses that I actually want to move toward? So, once again, like if I give an example of this, it's not necessarily about like releasing a relationship. For some of us, that's maybe how it's showing up, but it's more so what happens when things get tough in that relationship. Who do I become? Maybe you become the fixer. Maybe you try harder. Maybe you push further, right? Maybe you're the person who goes and chases them. Not looking at this from a moralistic standpoint, just asking yourself, is that who I want to continue to be in those dynamics? Because one of the things that comes up with the shadow of gate 29 is like commitment for the sake of commitment. So it's this really beautiful dichotomy, right? It's like we want to commit because, as Richard Rudd talks about in his book, maybe I'll read a little bit about it. He talks about how commitment is really what leads to luck and allows us to participate in the mystery and magic of life when we really say, yes, we are going to do it. And on the other hand, we can often stay committed to things. For example, the example he gives is like, oh, being in a marriage that lasted, your entire life or 50 years. And it's like, and if it doesn't work out, then it's a failure versus looking at it as like, well, if the commitment ended, then is it something to look forward to endure when something is no longer working and it's becoming very apparent for both of the people, right? It invites these kinds of questions. So, where are you enduring longer than you need to? And where are you maybe not committing deeply enough? When I quit my job as a pharmacist and people kept saying things like, well, you can always go back to pharmacy. And I would just kind of agree, but in my heart, I know. And maybe sometimes when things are tough, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just go back to pharmacy, when I have to encounter aspects of myself through my business and through showing up online that are very difficult for me. When that happens, sometimes I'm like, all right, screw this. I'm just going to go be a pharmacist again. But I know deep in my heart, and I've known it since I quit, that there's no plan B. There's no plan B. And so a lot of what happens in my life may look like luck. It may look like, that I'm just things are just happening for me. But really it's coming from this deep devotion and commitment to follow it through because it matters to me. So let's take a quick look at the chart just so we can start to see how these energies are playing out as we move toward this eclipse. Let's do this. Okay. So we have this Sun South Node conjunction 29 degrees, this anaretic culminating degree. Something is holding you back. A way of being is holding you back from moving toward more of your evolutionary purpose right now. What you are here to contribute. There's something holding you back. And the way I like to define creativity that is often associated to Leo, right? Self-expression, creativity, joy, fun. Creativity is the ability to become a co-creator in your life, to become a conscious participant in your reality rather than being in victim mode, like things are happening to you. But it's difficult sometimes when we have a lot of things weighing us down. And right now, once again, the South Node is draining. The sun is our vitality. The sun is our direction. So we may feel directionless. We may feel tired. We may feel like our life force energy is being drained. Once again, how can we use that efficiently right now? As a projector, I am my the thing that I do for my clients and myself, but more so my clients, is moving into how do we use what is there in the most efficient and magical way? How do we connect to it differently? Right? By the way, I am opening up my one-on-ones pretty soon. So I've had a wait list going. I haven't been seeing one-on-one clients for over 3 months now, and I will be starting to see them again. So make sure you're on the wait list. I will be sending out that email soon. Not only do we have this energy going on, but once again, the South Node eclipse, or sorry, the North Node lunar eclipse that we are moving toward at the end of this month is also asking us a completely different thing. There's something coming around like fulfillment. I'm going to, talk about this a little bit more, but yeah, there's something around fulfillment that's coming through heavily right now. Like lack of fulfillment. What is that pointing me toward? Okay, these old ways are no longer working. What do I have to do to step into this new way? What do I have to release? Now, if we look at this, once it becomes exact, the moon moves into Capricorn. So we've got a fallen moon or a moon in detriment. Then we've got Mars in its fall. And then we've got Saturn, the ruler of the moon, in his fall as well. So when the moon is in Capricorn, it's already a difficult placement. But while Saturn's in Aries, it's always going to feel even more difficult. Mars in Cancer doesn't, when it's really committed, actually, yes, this is a really important thing about Mars and Cancer. People with debilitated Mars can actually be the people who are the most committed. With Cancer, It's when there is an emotional resolve, when there is something about protecting something, when it comes to their emotions, their family, the past, memories, they can do so much and they can be so committed when the emotion's there. So it can often looks like a lot of laziness on the outside, but when something really grasps them, it really freaking grasps them. And so, like, can we just allow that to be okay? You know what I mean? Because once again, Capricorn is like the soldier. We know when Mars is in Capricorn, it's a soldier. It's like it doesn't matter if you feel good. You show up and you do it and you have a duty and you have a responsibility. But Mars isn't there right now. We've got a lot of energy that's showing like there's a lack of fulfillment somewhere. There's a lack of there's a lack of fulfillment. At the same time, we've got Venus opposing Saturn, right? So something happening possibly within relationships where we feel restriction, we feel limited, we feel maybe even like a sense of cruelty and harshness. Even though we're trying to maintain peace and harmony, it just feels like something's not working. And so there's an invitation to start doing it different. And it starts with how you are being, who you become when those things get difficult. Is there anything else I want to say about this? No. I do want to read from Richard Rudd, though. He talks about in I have this book, The Gene Keys, in my book list down below. I'll be updating my book list again soon because yeah, I like to update it every once in a while. He calls this the life half lived. More than anything, the shadow, half heartedness, concerns a basic lack of trust in human desire. And human desire, we can see that through Venus, and Saturn can make us definitely not trust Venus and our desires. And Mars is how we go about getting those desires consciously. So Venus is in her domicile, but Saturn is making it hard to trust your desires. How do you know which desires you actually want to move toward? And then Mars is very selective about how it consciously moves towards them. Is this something that will actually bring me emotional fulfillment or not? And if that's not there, then it's going to feel like you're just stuck, like you're just like floating in this void, right? It stems from, in essence, the shadow is about two things that ultimately come from the same source, which is overcommitment and a lack of commitment. The secret to all commitment lies in the way in which you begin. It is the energy behind your actions that creates your future rather than the actions themselves. And I very much agree with this. Most of the work that I do is really about helping people realign their the relationship to everything they're doing. So sometimes obviously, there's a lot of guidance around, hey, is an invitation to do this, or they ask me, how do I do this? But on a deeper level, if those actions are stemming from fear and scarcity, they might work short term, but long term, you're going to find yourself back in the same spot. When I became a pharmacist, that was done out of fear. That's it. There's no desire. It's so funny. People ask me, like, why'd you stop being a pharmacist? And I'm like, because I hated it. I didn't want to do it. I was just scared. I wanted to be a psychiatrist since I was like 9. I was always into like investigations. I still am. I watch a lot of different trials right now. I'm watching the Lindsay Clancy trial, which has a lot to do with psychiatry as well. But when I got sick in my in college and I went through the medical system and I was like, oh my God, I can't be in this. This is awful. Um, I was my dreams were shattered. I didn't know what to do. And I was like, well, this is the path of least resistance. I don't have to prescribe medicine and I'm just the middleman. It was a very flawed way of thinking about things because I was so terrified of what would happen if I didn't become this respectable, part of society. And so when I graduated at 25 on the outside, everyone's like, Jazz, you're a pharmacist. You're 25 years old. Like, everything looks good. But internally, it was like as soon as I reached that goal, it was like profound emptiness. And it wasn't until 9 years later that I quit. So, yeah, it's really not about the goal. And he talks about this as well. So when people come to me and they're very, I want to reach this goal, it's like, sure, goals are great because commitment is something that really, like, devotion is something that really gives us purpose and meaning. But what aspect of it are we devoted to? The outcome? Because that's going to make it really hard. He says, once you have embarked on a certain path in life, you really are flying blind. You only have the power of your commitment to carry you through the day. With half-heartedness, you are constantly concerned about where this path will take you, and whether you have made the right decision in the first place. So a lot of times we commit and it looks like commitment, but we are constantly thinking about the outcome, and that's not true commitment. So, for example, it's like staying in a relationship for 20 years, hoping that the other person will change and constantly doing things that make you, it's like, is this the right path? Should I leave? Should I go? Rather than being like, I've chosen to stay. And in 6 months, I will reevaluate. That's a very different energy. And it's something I use a lot in my business as well. When I'm making decisions. I mean, it's a huge thing. And that also, by the way, helps you build self-trust. So as this sun south node conjunction is arising, as this lunar eclipse is arising, we're in this liminal space. We're feeling this, sense of vitality almost being just like drained out of us. And it's been, I talked about August being a time of shining, and it is. And the thing is, the shining is a truer part of you. It's maybe a part of yourself that you haven't met in a long time. And it may require looking at some of the unconscious patterns and desires that are there, right? This is what Pluto always reminds us of, is these unconscious desires, this shadow work that I like doing, the unconscious work that I like doing, that people think it's just, it's a lot more intense. You have to admit that there are certain things keeping you in certain places that you're benefiting from. Ooh, right? All the things that we hate. It's like, what am I, maybe there's a reason why I'm still maintaining these patterns, even though I don't consciously like them. So there's a deeper process underneath this. And the exhaustion right now is like, my invitation is, you don't have to completely resign from life, but also, what can this exhaustion teach you about how you are showing up in the world that is no longer going to be able to be maintained? It costs too much energetically. And how can we use somatics and remembering that we are safe in this moment, exactly as we are, with this breath that is offered to you, in order to start slowly changing our relationship to what is happening, who we are becoming, a new sense of safety, right? And when we are safe, when we feel safe, those survival strategies start to drain away. It's almost like you don't even have to do anything. You just create safety without them. Thank you so much for being here. If you'd like to be on my wait list, as I said, for the one-on-ones, that is down below. I'm also going to be running Creative Rewilding soon. Inner Revolution Immersion is getting a massive transformation over the next over some time. Okay. So, but I will be offering that again soon. Creative Rewilding has also been refined. Wherever you have this sun south node happening in Leo, 29 degrees of Leo, I want you to just think about that there is nothing that you have to force into letting go. This is something that we have to allow the process of. We have to receive that process that is wanting to unfold through us. And then we can start getting into rebuilding what is actually there beyond and beneath these survival strategies. All right. Have a beautiful day. I'll see you next time.